Well, hey again. You're getting a lot of me this week. Crazy. Thanks for joining me for another edition of Electric Avenue's YouTube updates. And we're doing the new releases for January 12th, 2024. Smallest week of the last few weeks, I think. But there's still a fair amount of good things. And so I'll show those. I have a recommends. I also just wanted to mention thank you to everybody who said some very nice, sweet things about my cat, and I appreciate all of that. I'll say she's sort of stable right now. We've got her on a lot of meds, trying to monitor the meds so she doesn't go into either heart failure or kidney failure. She's been drinking a lot of water, so we're watching that. She's 9, so it's kind of like seems like young for a cat, but all cats are different. And so anyway, that's a sort of a full-time job, I suppose. But anyway, let me get to the new releases. You didn't come for the cat sympathy corner, I know, but thank you. All right, first up, Rhino's Start Your Ear Off Right campaign. I think they're starting it off pretty right here with Grateful Dead's Terrapin Station, probably one of the most wanted Dead reissues as far as like, can you give us a good sounding reissue of this at some point? I don't know if, and actually, I don't think it had been repressed for a really long time. So, brand new copies on limited edition green vinyl, newly mastered by David Glasser, featuring estimated prophet Samson and Delilah dancing in the street and a whole side of Terrapin Station. This was released 1977. So that's some good classic Dead for Deadheads. Another one. They couldn't help themselves, so they had to do two. Well, they just did a few months ago here. So Rhino's been sort of in excessive on the Dead, but that's great. Get us caught up in the dark. This was the album that featured Touch of Grey, and which is probably why the sticker says the Dead's biggest album ever. It was a pretty big hit, 1987, limited edition silver vinyl. Features also West LA Fadeaway, Throwing Stones, and Hell in a Bucket. So, very popular record for them. All right. Let's see. There's some other. I'm kind of doing some of the reissues at the beginning today. There's Steve Miller's The Joker, Steve Miller Band Live in concert. It doesn't say exactly what year this concert was that I can see or where exactly it was, but um, maybe people can tell from the players on there or the song title if you want to freeze that. Let's see. Well, I mean, The Joker is a very famous hit for him, kind of a big breakthrough FM radio hit. I mean, he'd had, I don't know, I guess that era was sort of big for him. I was just a small kid, so I remember hearing things like Fly Like an Eagle on The Joker on the radio a lot as a kid. Fly Like an Eagle from a different album, Fly Like an Eagle. But yeah, so anyway, Steve Miller fans, check that out. A much newer reissue, only 5 years old apparently. Fifth anniversary, Alice in Chains, Rainier Fog, however you say that, if you're French or not, I suppose. This was an album that obviously Lane Staley was not part of, but people really loved it. They said it was like a big sort of comeback album for Alice in Chains. I mean, I think they've said that about a couple of them now, but featuring Red Giant and the one you know. So, Alice in Chains completists, you might be wanting that. Another band who sort of are sort of mining the vaults a little bit, Cage the Elephant with the album Thank You, Happy Birthday. This is a RSD Essential Ultra Clear vinyl with 5 additional tracks. So if you have this album and you want these other tracks, Doctor, Carry Me In, 2024 acoustic, Shake Me Down acoustic, and Right Before My Eyes acoustic. So it's spread over 2 LPs, sort of a collector's edition clear vinyl. Probably, I would say their least well accepted album and probably their least selling album, but there are a lot of Cagey Elephant fans out there that, and many of them like that album. So it's an album that helped make them what they are today. Let's see, there's a couple of jazzy things this week being reissued. McCoy Tyner's Today and Tomorrow. This is from the Verve by Request series. So that's something that you might want to sort of investigate. This was released 1963. Features Thad Jones and Elvin Jones on Elvin's on drums. Let's see. There's also remember to grab this. Ramsey Lewis, The In Crowd, is another Verve by Request. This album, I think, is fairly easy to find as an original, but if you want a really nice new pressing, there's that. Another new pressing of something that you don't see as often. This is on Concord Jazz. Ray Barretto. This is a sort of a Latin jazz title. Que Viva la Musica is the name of it. And yeah, so check that out. That is 1972. Lots of reissues. And also Christian McBride's big band, Feeling the Good Feeling. This was done 2011, I believe. So it's a 2 LP reissue, some standards, and Grammy Award winning debut from Christian McBride, featuring a 17-piece band. So good for him. That's very cool. Let's see. Also, jazz. Ima Sumac, Mambo. Well, what can I say about Ima Sumac? First of all, this is on Destination Moon Records. Clear vinyl. They only made 500 of them. This is number 43. What a unique voice. She was Peruvian. She basically toured the world and became extremely famous for having like a 5-octave range. She was sort of like the jazz Mariah Carey of her day, except her songs were a lot more kind of wild and sort of multicultural, Latino or sort of sounding. Very like interesting vocals. I would say she's sort of like a kind of a torch singer in a way, but more like ethnic than that, and definitely could do a lot of weird things with her voice because she grew up around the jungle, so she was imitating the bird calls that she would hear all of the jungle birds singing. A very unique voice. So cool. All right, that's a cool thing. Let's see, a couple other things here. Sort of a modern, and she's not that way, but definitely sort of a popular modern Latino singer. And I don't know how long I can show this cover for, but Kali Uchis, it's called Orquídeas. I'm guessing that might be orchids. I'm not sure, but anyway, it looks like she's sort of wrapped up in flowers there. She's unique. I saw her open for Lana Del Rey maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, and she put on a great show. She's very sensual, but she was a very good singer, good live singer. So let's see, another reissue from Opeth. This is Damnation 20th Anniversary Edition. It's just a single LP black vinyl, but it's very reasonably priced. In other words, it's around 25, 26 bucks. And also, I love this band. For some reason, I didn't listen to the last record. I don't know why. So I'll have to check this out. The new Vaccines album. It's called Pick Up Full of Pink Carnations. Try saying that 5 times fast. And it is pressed on translucent pink vinyl. So, new album from the Vaccines. They're British, right? I think so. and also kind of like humorous rock at times, but or sort of quirky. I don't know who I'd put them in a category with. It's a good question. Catchy rock though, catchy stuff. Without being just pure pop. So okay, let's see. Well, the last things that I had to show today, I kind of wanted to tell a little bit of a story with these reissues. Oh, almost forgot one. Ha! I don't know how this slipped by me. Trevor Horn, his new album Echoes, Ancient and Modern. I think this came out before Christmas in the UK. Trevor is a famous producer, worked with Yes. He's the man behind Video Killed the Radio Star for the Buggles, which set MTV on its course. He's also producer for lots of big 80s bands, ABC, uh, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Propaganda, Grace Jones, and then also did kicked off Seal's career too. So this is an album of cover songs, mostly 80s songs, sung by other people. So we actually get Steppin' Out by Seal singing, which I believe is a Joe Jackson Steppin' Out. Owner of a Lonely Heart, sung by Rick Astley. Love is a Battlefield by Mark Almond of Soft Cell. Slave to the Rhythm featuring Lady Blackbird. Personal Jesus, the Depeche Mode song sung by Iggy Pop and Phoebe Lunny. Swimming Pools by Tori Amos. Drive, the Cars song by Steve Hogarth of Marillion. Relax, featuring Toya Wilcox and Robert Fripp. Well, if you've seen any of their lunch videos, yeah, White Wedding, featuring Andrea Corr and Jack Lukeman. Smells Like Teen Spirit by Jack Lukeman. And Avalon, a Roxy Music cover that has no singer. So I'm guessing that's just the music anyway. Trevor Horn's Echoes, Ancient and Modern. All right. So, yeah, I was going to today just talk briefly about one of my favorite bands of the 80s. And I kind of mentioned this in my last video when I talked about albums that were very special to me and in the vinyl tag video. And I mentioned a Cocteau Twins video called Treasure. And Cocteau Twins originally they were they were until they quit, a three person group. At first it was let's see if I can get this right. Robin Guthrie on guitars, Elizabeth Fraser on vocals, and Will Heggie, I believe, was a guitarist, and he left, and then Simon Raymond came in as a keyboardist, and that was around the early 80s, probably 83, 84, something like that. Simon is actually the head of the Bella Union record label, indie record label, still very active in music. Robin is still playing, and Liz is still singing, so they're all still active, but they haven't been a band since '97. And those first few years, I guess it's sort of, I would say, the first Cocteau Twins records that I bought, I had a friend who had one or two, and I was so intrigued by them. And then you would sort of almost buy their records and have no expectations, at least not in America, because buying imports then, well, we didn't have YouTube. There was no way to really hear them, especially if radio wasn't playing them. So it was kind of, and even college radio didn't really play them much at first. It was kind of like going sight unheard. Like you would sort of just be attracted by the cover art and say, oh, I like this, or I like the aesthetics that this record label is putting out. Like 4AD was a great record label, but at the time they were fairly unknown as well. They did, in the U.S. there was no like mass knowledge about 4AD records or whatever. And Ivo Watts Russell, the president or label head. So Anyway, Cocteau Twins for the first few years, very enigmatic group. Sometimes they didn't put like the song titles on their records, so you really didn't know always what you were getting. But always interesting and intriguing sorts of records. And they kind of, for the first few years, they were very much sort of confined to being a 4AD band. And then American labels started to get interested in distributing their records over here. And so the first sort of turning point came in 1988 when they had done like four albums up to that point, I believe four, and then a bunch of EPs as well. And they came out with an album called Bluebell Knoll, which is still one of my favorite albums of theirs. 1988. So this was their first sort of American album on Capitol Records, even though it was still 4AD in the UK. No song titles printed on it anywhere, so you really didn't know how many songs you were getting, what you were getting. There were 10 songs on this. And I think this album, for some people, like to think of it as slightly like a good second tier album for them. I think it's first tier. I think this is where they were super strong, and um, actually from here on, this sort of kind of took what they'd done so far and kind of kept the level of quality very high. But this featured the single Carolyn's Fingers. The first track, Bluebell Knoll, was very sort of like art. Had this kind of cool synth harpsichord riff throughout it. Um, they did have a tendency to start going for very like Dadaist kind of silly song titles. Treasure was sort of one word song titles that were all based on like sort of Greek mythology or things like that. Odd names for people. This one had song titles like For Phoebe Still a Baby, The Itchy Globo Blow, Suckling the Mender, Spooning Good Singing Gum, A Kissed Out Red Float Boat, and Ella Megalast Burls Forever. Now, the reason that I bring this up is that Elizabeth Fraser has one of the most magical, entrancing voices ever. Ever. And to have it on record is like you're almost preserving like some kind of magic that will never be recreated. It set the tone also for so much of the shoegaze and like dream pop and all. Like a band like the Sundays would probably not have existed had they not heard Elizabeth Fraser's vocals. And Harriet Wheeler is a fantastic vocalist in her own right. So just amazing, amazing work. And that album was kind of like, oh, well, this is selling pretty well, even in Middle America. But you have sort of gibberish lyrics, or lyrics that they might say, well, all of our lyrics were actually lyrics. It's just whether or not you could understand them. That was the problem. And Elizabeth has this just soaring, glorious voice, and she sings in sort of a made up language that is, you don't really know what she's saying. So, anyway, that was part of the magic of that album. They followed that up in 1990 with Heaven or Las Vegas, which is widely seen as their masterpiece. But I think, for me, Bluebell Knoll is every bit as good as this album, but this album is also amazing. And this features the title track. It's so good that even Miley Cyrus tried to cover it, and I don't think she really succeeded because the audience seemed lost, and she was trying to sing lyrics that were not really. I don't know if she necessarily had a grasp on it, but it was a valiant effort, I guess. But it also features the single Ice Blink Luck and Cherry Colored Funk, and then the beautiful, evocative last few tracks here, Road, River, and Rail, Frou Frou Foxes, and Midsummer Fires. And I love Fotsa Politic, which has sort of got a a really interesting rhythmic element to it. So more just soaring, beautiful vocals. So the reason I bring those two up is that this week we get the first ever US pressings of their last two albums from the 90s. These came out in the UK maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and finally we're getting them here. So the first one we're getting is 1993's Four Calendar Cafe. So they'd taken a, almost a 3 year break between Heaven or Las Vegas and this album. And again, no song titles on the back. I mean, at least Heaven or Las Vegas, you got them at the bottom, very small. Um, but so this is remastered by Robin Guthrie, the guitarist. Now, he and Elizabeth were a married couple for a while and had a child between Heaven or Las Vegas and this album. So, this album is much more kind of dreamy and almost feels like a dedication to their daughter, I believe. And it's also like very sweet, and you can almost sense lyrics that are understandable. The first thing that throws you off, though, is the first song is called Know Who You Are at Every Age. And the second song is called Evangeline. And Evangeline has a lyric in it that says, You know who you are at every age. So then you start thinking, am I listening to the right song, or did they get the titles mixed up? But anyway, they're both really beautiful songs. The opening track is kind of moody and haunting, whereas Evangeline is a very sparse kind of track and has all of these like just high notes and then low notes. What I find amazing about Liz Fraser is that her voice is so malleable that she can sing two or three different parts on the same song and literally sound like two or three different people depending on what her range is and what she's doing with the notes. It's extraordinary, and if you've never heard her, this is probably a really good entry point album because it's very beautiful, and it might not make much sense to you, but it makes more sense than any of the other albums as far as lyrics go. So, Bluebeard was the single. That's track 3. That's got a very sort of chimey kind of like guitar. There's so much echo and ambience on their records. It's really a special thing. I totally miss all of this, you can tell. And then towards the end of the album, Summerhead is a little bit more of an urgent kind of song. And Purr is the one that sort of finishes, and it has like a couple minutes of just quiet and calm, and then it just explodes. It's like glorious. So, and Essence is also a very beautiful, quiet little track. So I get choked up talking about these records because they're so emotional. And if you remove like words from a vocal, and the person still moves you emotionally like that, it's a gift. Final album, Milk and Kisses, still seen pretty highly with critics. It gets a little bit of a negative rap, I think. Well, what can I say except Liz and Robin were going through some tough times making this album. He was dealing with a lot of addiction problems, and it wasn't pretty. And I saw them on this tour. I finally got to see them, and it was unfortunately one of the worst concerts I'd ever been to because it was so loud. The guitars were turned so loud, and Liz was just singing whatever. They didn't sound like things from the album. They sounded like strangled bird calls, really. And I think she was doing it on purpose because I saw her again on a Massive Attack tour a few years later when they brought her out to sing Teardrop, and she sang it note for note perfect. And so I feel like they were probably being a little antagonistic at this point, and somebody said even that it was like a contest to see who could anger each other more. Some of these nights, maybe it was just my impression, but it really was. It was sort of a letdown. The album is amazing. It and again, here's something that Capitol did though that I didn't really appreciate. Not only did they put the album or the song titles on here, but they give you all of the track uh, song lengths. And that's fine if it's a CD and you're putting it in and you see the numbers come up. But I don't really want to be reminded on my beautiful record jacket here how long the songs are. But maybe when I was a little kid, I found that interesting. But anyway, this features the beautiful Rilke Heart, which is a great song. The, again, epic ending tracks, Treasure Hiding and Seekers Who Are Lovers. Um, Mind-blowingly good. Eperdu is beautiful. Ups has all these little vocal trills that she does, this little thing that is really kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool. The first side, I think, is a little more muted kind of in texture. It's not as chimey or echoey as like some of their other records, but I think they were just sort of like trying to sort of stay current and do a sound that they thought could get maybe played somewhere. But really, the special aspect of Cocteau Twins is that they kind of existed in a universe of their own outside the bubble. And yeah, early on, they probably took a lot from bands like the Banshees, Susie and the Banshees, The Cure, and their kind of sounds of guitars and rhythm and stuff like that. But they really sort of existed in kind of a bubble, and I consider them extremely special. And a lot of those 480 bands, like Dead Can Dance, same way. Very, very unique kind of music. Um, I just hope the kids get the kind of music that we got as kids that was that level of um, special and emotional. And I'm sure that there is. And sometimes you just have to search for it and find that niche. I will briefly also mention Sun's Signature, which came out in the last couple years. Uh, this was the most recent Liz Fraser vocal recording, and it's actually quite beautiful. Also, it's sort of an EP. There's 5 songs, but it lasts maybe 20-25 minutes or so, and it features guitarist Steve Hackett from Genesis, from 70s Genesis, on a lot of these backing tracks, adding his little filigree and stuff. Beautiful, beautiful songs. She's singing in sort of a lighter, airier voice here, and not doing quite as many vocal acrobatics. But Sun's Signature, it's a name that I know is difficult to remember. This was actually, they put it out on Record Store Day, I think a year ago. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I think it was 2022. And then this version came out a little bit later, pressed on yellow, marbled yellow vinyl. So, anyway, if you've never heard the Cocteau Twins, you really should. And be prepared for something that you've never heard the likes of before, because the words won't make sense to you, but it's more about what she's saying with her voice and not with words. So, all right. This video still ended up being almost 30 minutes long. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great week. I tried to make it shorter. Peace. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Pop some 480 in your CD player, or if you've got the record. You call it on YouTube. All right. Take care. Bye.